Today's episode is brought to you by Dutch Valley Farms. What's Dutch Valley Farms? For starters, not your average cannabis grow farm. They've got deep roots in the 305. Hometown group of doctors, CPAs, and Silicon Valley professionals have taken their talents from the 305 to the 503 to make you the finest flower out there. Today, the Dutch Valley Farms crew is bringing together old school growing practices with new school tech to deliver a consistently clean, high quality experience you can feel good about. The proof is in the plant. You want more information? Visit DutchVF.com. That's DutchVF.com, or follow them on Instagram at Dutch Valley Farms. All right, Ethan Skolnick back here on the latest 305 Live. We took a few days off, but I don't think we have the two of you guys on, but not together, I don't believe.
No,
this is the first time.
This is the first time. So we got J and J, and I guess I'm a J too, kind of. Jakari Givens, they're over there on the far left, opposite of me. Jazz Santana in the middle. You can find Jazz's work now all over 5reasonsports.com. By the way, if you were following any of us on Maven, don't. We're all going to be on 5reasonsports.com right now as we build that out. But today we're going to do just football. We'll get back to basketball tomorrow. I'll be at the arena with Alex Toledo. We'll do a pregame pod. Postgame pod. We'll do a pregame 305 Live on the Heat and the Hawks. But today we're going to do some football. We're going to do the Canes and the Dolphins. I was at the Canes game on Saturday against Louisville, and that looked different to me. The quote that was used, or that was said afterwards by Manny Diaz was, now fans are starting to see what we want this to look like. In your view, I'll start with Jakari, have the Hurricanes turned the corner here a little bit?
Yes, they have. You got to just look at, I think the biggest thing is Jaren. Jaren Williams looks like a completely different player since that meltdown he had against Virginia Tech. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think Perry's play made him start playing better because Perry looked at decent in the wins, but I think it pushed Williams to be like, well, I have to get on my A game or else I'm going to lose my star position to him. So, and I also want to go back to after Manny Diaz got more involved with the defense, and you can kind of tell how the play of the D-line is. It's amazing. You got the kid Gregory. I can't say his last name.
Russo.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's an amazing kid. I think he's going to be like a top 10 pick whenever he does get Giraffe eligible. So their defense looks better. It's just, and I think the competition they have been playing as well has helped them out too.
Jazz, they turned it?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that last statement that Jakari made. You know, the level of competition, Louisville's not great, although, you know, they do score a lot of points and put up a lot of yards. FSU's not great either, and Pitt's okay. Pitt's not bad. But, I want to start with the defensive side of the ball. You know, regardless of whether, you know, they're not great teams or not, you still gotta play defense, and you still gotta hold them from scoring. And I think you know, maybe you know, Manny Diaz being a part of that defense a little bit more, putting more of his time and effort on that side has changed it a little bit. But I just feel like they got the right mix of guys going in and out now, whereas opposed to before, maybe you had, you know, guys like Scott Patchen starting as opposed to Rousseau or even Trayvon Hill coming out and not getting as many snaps as maybe he is getting now. And you're starting to see these guys really put it together and get some kind of groove going there. You know, the play of Shaq Quarterman from the beginning of the season to now, you see a huge jump in his productivity. And the way he's making plays. Mike Pickney, I think, has played well all season long. And just because you're seeing that front seven really get a lot more pressure, it's starting to make the secondary look that much better as well. Whereas, you know, secondary was struggling a little bit. Even Trajan Bandy was struggling a little bit at the beginning of the season. You're starting to see them turn the corner a little bit. On the offensive side of the ball, you're definitely seeing, you know, the play of Jaren Williams. He's you know, coming into his own, yes, but he's transitioning. He's transforming into a completely different player. And I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line growing up a little bit, guys. I mean,
right.
You know, we're seeing guys like Zion Nelson starting to really get a hang of it, you know, and that's going to take a little bit of time when you have, and it's not so much that he's a freshman. It's you got to look at his stature. You know, he was a thin guy. Trying to play against these big 260, 270 pound defensive ends, you know, maybe he's starting to understand the way that he needs to play that position. So I think that front four, front five, you know, starting line, offensive line has really grown up a lot, and that's helped Jaron Williams really, kind of grow and mature and see the field a little bit better. I mean, that performance this past weekend was, regardless of who they were playing, was pretty incredible.
You got to give
the offensive line to me is the big thing this show. Go ahead, Jakari.
You got to give Dan some credit though, because his play calling has changed drastically from the beginning of the season to now. He's running a lot more things that's helping Jaron make quick decisions, quick post routes, quick slants, getting the ball out of his hands very fast.
Yeah, and that's opening up all the deep stuff, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that strikes me here is you go back a couple of years and you had the undefeated run that they had, and then things fell apart at the end of the season under Rick. And now we've kind of gone the opposite way, where there was a lot of disappointment early in the year about the way they played, but they seem to be getting better. So, I mean, you mentioned Enos. To me, it looks like Enos has sort of figured out his personnel a little bit also, which, that and the offensive line, both those things happening together. But the overriding question is Manny, right? So, I mean, regardless of whether the competition has gotten worse, they're probably going to beat FIU. They're probably going to win the last game of the season, right, against Duke, which is going to make them 8-4 going into a reasonably competitive bowl game. I feel like Manny has at least sort of righted the ship from his perspective now, where maybe some of those recruits that were going to leave might end up staying because they see something building instead of falling apart. Jakari.
So, as I pointed to earlier, I thought Manny Diaz was a great hire because he understood the culture of the Miami Hurricanes. He started off slow, but think about it. They played August 31st against the Florida Gators. You're talking about a good Florida team. Defense phenomenal, but they opened up the season basically at week 0. That wasn't no preparation. I think if they had more time to prepare, I think that game would have been won by Miami. And then you got Miami's thing to me in the beginning was they was playing down to their competition. So the team, when they played Florida, they got up for the Florida Gators game. They was ready to play rivalry game, ready to play. But I think the experience Manny Diaz has gained from the bad losses they had, they are more prepared down the stretch. So I think Manny has learned how to become a coach over the time of the season.
Yeah, good point. Manny Diaz has grown up also, right? I think everybody's grown up on the coaching staff. It's a learning process. It's a learning curve, and I think we spoke about this, Ethan, many episodes back, where is the honeymoon phase over? Does he know how? Is he a CEO type of head coach, or is he a guy that needs to be hands on? And I think he figured that out now as the season went along, where he said, okay, I need to be more focused on putting my 2 cents into this defense, and that changed. That helped this defense kind of grow up and play a little bit better, and a lot of things changed on the defensive side of the ball. Same thing that maybe goes for the offensive side. Dan Enos was maybe testing different schemes out, different plays out, and wasn't really putting the right the right formations out there with the right players. And I think he's figured that out now as well. He's noticed that some guys are getting some are building some chemistry together. At the beginning of the season, we barely saw D. Wiggins come out and run these post routes and run these deep routes, and now you're noticing that him and Jaron Williams are really starting to pick up some momentum and starting to build that chemistry, and I think he's playing off of that, and he's really building off of that momentum with some of those guys. I'm just really happy for what they're doing and how things are going now. But as far as it helping recruiting, yeah, anytime you win, it helps recruiting, and right. You lose and it doesn't help. And nowadays, the way that these kids are thinking, how with the early signing period and all that stuff, right. It's tough to really say if this is going to affect them positively or negatively. I think it's just a matter of doing whatever you can do, control what you can control, keep winning football games, and hope that the big names like the Justin Flows of the world and Jalen Harrell and guys like that commit and sign early and come on board and see what's going on. Especially, the linebacker position is going to be thin next year, so a guy like Justin Flows would really make a big difference.
I disagree with you at is the recruiting part, because Miami, to be honest, you don't have to recruit outside of the state of Florida in general. You have to go get your offensive line and D linemen from other states. But Miami is going to recruit itself. They have a couple of unheralded players that they're probably going to get from offering late. So I don't think the recruiting is ever going to be an issue in Miami. I think the coaching has been the issue the past couple of seasons because its talent is there. Like talent's going to always be in Miami. So I don't think the recruiting thing will take a hit, wins or losses, because you just got kids who just want to play for Miami regardless.
Well, you're gonna get kids that want to play for Miami, but where I differ with this argument is, for me, it's not about keeping the kids in Miami. I think you're going to get your kids in Miami. You're going to get the talented, guys like your wide receivers and your running backs, but you still need to go outside of the state of Florida. If you notice, and I know we actually touched on this earlier, is a lot of the best players that Miami's ever had come from outside of the state of Florida or outside of South Florida to begin with. So for me, like you said, though, Jakari, recruiting is what it is. You're going to get your players. You're going to get some kids that are going to leave the 305, 954, 561 area either way. Control what you can control. Win football games, and you're either going to get kids or you're not, and you just got to develop them. And like you said, it's about coaching as well. You got to develop those players. If you develop these kids, that's what college is about, developing players. Talent alone is going to win you a lot of games, but at the end of the day, there's going to be certain guys that need to be developed. Like, a guy like Robert Knowles waited until his 5th year to develop, and now look at how he's playing. And I think that's a testament to what the coaching staff is doing with him now.
All right, let's switch. Let's pivot to the Dolphins, guys, while we have a little bit of time here. Woo! And I know there's a big debate on this because the tanking crew is very upset about what's happened the past 2 games. I will mention that Ryan Fitzpatrick was hard at work on his breakfast this morning. My daughter and I bumped into him downtown Las Olas, so he was very. I didn't want to bother him, but we were the only 3 people in the place, so he was kind enough to he was kind enough to take a picture, and I congratulate him on the win. And I feel like he doesn't know how to react to people congratulating him on wins at this stage because he doesn't know really what they're thinking. There is this big debate, obviously, about whether the Dolphins have kind of screwed things up the past 2 games. I have a different argument here. If you go back the past 20 years, let's go back since Shula, right? When Jimmy Johnson was hired in 1996, obviously Jimmy got off to a pretty damn good start drafting guys like Pat and Zach and Sam and Jason, but never really figured out the right equation, kind of got bored with it, was playing with Buttercup, his Yorkie, all the time, trading stocks, and that really didn't work out. And then they had Wannstedt, and he couldn't cash in, and then we all know what's happened since, right? Saban was the one big hire, didn't end up working out. His heart wasn't in it either. Cameron, Philbin, etc. My thought is they've had as much trouble finding a coach over the past 20 plus years as they have finding a quarterback. So if they found the coach now, because of what we've seen here over this season, is he's winning with an XFL roster, shouldn't fans be happy about that instead of just frustrated that they're not necessarily going to get the quarterback they want? I'll start with Jazz.
I think it's kind of tough because I'm really split down the middle on this one, because at the same time that, I want them to get that first pick or that second pick, I'm also happy because it feels like we kind of figured it out on the coaching side of things. I think Brian Flores seems to be right. I mean, seems to be the right guy for the job. I mean, like you said, he's winning with XFL type of guys, and he's putting them in positions to win. And it really reminds me, as much as I hate to say it, it really reminds me of how the New England Patriots play and how they win. With now, they do have their talented guys and their big name guys, but for the most part, they win with guys that you've never heard of or you've heard very little of, or guys that get cut by another team and they get picked up and they're just being put in the right position to win and to succeed and to really thrive in whatever it is that the Patriots are doing. I feel like I'm getting that same type of feel from the Miami Dolphins, and that's exciting to me because now at this point it doesn't matter to me who we get, yes, but does it really make a huge difference if we go with Chase Young as opposed to Tua? Or no, I just think it's a matter of scheme, and if it's gonna fit right. I think these coaches have an idea as who they really want that's gonna fit their schemes, and that's what's gonna make it successful. So I kind of get that feel from this Dolphins coaching staff. So I feel like we got it right on that side. I'm not too concerned if if we get the first pick or not. Either way, we're still pretty bad, so we're gonna pretty much guarantee the top 5 pick at this point. So I don't know if they could get it wrong at this point. I'm kind of torn on if I want Tua or Burrow after this past weekend.
All
So I like Flores was a great hire in general, but just because you just going back to the Super Bowl game, seeing how he caught that defensive game, he made probably one of the best offensive minded coaches, Sean McVay, look very like he had Jared Goff looking lost in the game. Like he was like a 10-3 game. So I think you hired the right coach. I think he's gonna develop his players into winning. You can see the progress they've made from week 1 to now. And if they don't trade all their players, Miami's probably in the 9-10 game win, like a 9-10 game winning pace on the season if they don't obliterate the roster. So I don't have a problem with that. The Dolphins still gonna be picking in the top 4. Like right now, the only teams in front of them are the Bengals, who they're not gonna win again because they're pretty bad. The Jets, the Redskins, and then it's the Dolphins. So the Jets and the Redskins are not going to be in a quarterback hunt per se to me. The Redskins is going to be kind of hard for them to get a player to come play there because their organization just has a bad overall look. So I don't think a franchise quarterback is going to be like, oh, I want to go play there. So I don't think the Dolphins have too much to be worried about. I mean, picking in the top 4. I don't see they have 2 winnable games down the stretch, so I think they find the right guy because he's developing these guys into players. Like we're watching these games and it's like they're competing, and it's hard to get a player who's fighting for their NFL life to go out there and say, "I just want to go on 16."
Yeah, these players aren't tanking. The players aren't tanking. The coaching staff's not tanking. It's I understand that the management didn't put them in a position to succeed, and that's where you see the quote unquote tanking going on. And I get that, but again, what they're doing, what this coaching staff is doing with these players is pretty incredible, and that you got to be happy about that. You got to have a positive outlook on that.
Yeah, no, it seems like it, and I do think there probably are 2 other winnable games. Then the question becomes, like Jakari said, was this a playoff team? If you don't, I don't think they were, but could it have been a borderline playoff team if you don't trade Fitzpatrick, if you don't trade Tunsil? But the idea all of these in those spots, I guess you don't really want to see Minka Fitzpatrick doing what he's doing for somebody else right now. But this is all sort of the grand scheme.
With Fitzpatrick, it was never a matter of talent. I think his emotions just got involved early on in the season because Miami was getting obliterated, and they granted his request. So I think that was his main problem. I don't think the Dolphins made a mistake trading for the picks because as of right now, that's ammunition for them to get the players they want. If you don't have the number 1 pick, and I still think they can get Tua if they perceive so. Because I think Cincinnati's going to go more with Joe Burrow than Tua.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jakari. I'm not too worried about their draft position right now. Again, I'm pretty excited with what Coach Flores has done. I like the play calling by Chad O'Shea on the offensive side of the ball. And as someone mentioned a little earlier in the comments, we're winning with backup running backs. We're winning with even a guy we just signed off the street playing wide receiver, and the offensive line still is not very good. Ryan Fitzpatrick has just run the offense well. The play calling has been good. We're executing, and they're winning football games with a bad team. So it's pretty exciting to see the fact that this coaching staff is doing these things with minimal talent, as we like to say.
All right, Jakari, Jazz, we lost Ethan for a little bit, but last question.
All right.
Which team would you be more excited about at the end of the season?
Go ahead, Jakari.
Both have their positives because one, the Dolphins have a coach finally that you can trust. Like you looking at him and like we can trust him to make the right decisions because they're winning with a less talented roster. I'm gonna be excited by Miami. They're gonna finish as an 8-9-1 team in Diaz's first year, and you have a quarterback of the future who's looking like he can be a first-round pick as well.
I think if you would have asked me this question 3 or 4 weeks ago, I might have told you that I was more excited to see what the Miami Dolphins were going to do just because of how bad the Hurricanes looked. But now, I mean, they've turned it around. Like you said, Jaron Williams looks like, he's the quarterback here for at least the next few years. And when he had that bad stint where he threw those 3 picks in the first quarter against Virginia, was it Virginia that he did it against? Virginia Tech. He was hurt also. He had a bad shoulder. Right. He was struggling with his shoulder, and that may have played into it, maybe not. Whatever the case was, he came back. He's playing strong. He's playing really well. He's starting to figure out the deep ball as well. He's starting to get it there, and I think that, again, that's a product of how well the offensive line is playing. But now, I mean, you see what the Dolphins are doing and how they're winning with minimal talent, and it's kind of tough for me to say who I'm going to be happiest about. Again, I'm a Cane, right? So I love the Canes. I love the Miami Hurricanes, and I'll be very happy if they end up 8-4 and win a bowl game. If they don't win the bowl game, it's still going to be disappointing. It's still a disappointing season just because I feel they should have done more with what they have. But I'm excited to see what the Dolphins do in the draft and how they build this team and get things going. I think Brian Flores is the right guy.
I got one last point to make. If the Dolphins do not get a quarterback in the draft, you got to put Cam Newton's name in the conversation to get traded for, because that's a name he can fit right into Miami, be a stopgap player for 3-4 years until the next great quarterback comes along in the draft.
Well, no, that's an interesting one, particularly because one of the reasons you have draft capital is so that you can burn it, right? I mean, so in other words, you can bring somebody in. Now, you don't want to burn it like you burned the second-round pick on Josh Rosen when it appears he's not part of the plans. I mean, they didn't even want him to throw the ball on Sunday. But obviously Cam Newton is not Josh Rosen, and I do feel like what's kind of happened in Carolina is, I know Cam's not what he was even when healthy. It's a little ridiculous. I mean, they expected Cam to do everything. They've got the guy who comes in for him who's just basically managing the offense, and they're celebrating it. I still think Cam can be effective in the right circumstances. So I'm with you. They need to take a quarterback in the draft wherever it is. They need to try to – I mean, they can't go another year with – and everybody knows that. They can't keep doing what they did for 20 years. But if they don't get the guy, then maybe you draft a guy, and then, like you said, maybe you do a stopgap to at least give the young players you're bringing in a chance to win. I think that would be an interesting approach.
And you also got to put Teddy Bridgewater in that conversam as for quarterback. Mariota could be a stopgap player. So it's a lot of quarterbacks who will be in the mix.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm not a big fan of any of those three. I'd rather draft a quarterback and let a guy like Fitzpatrick, help him out and mentor him. I think he'd be great for that role. Whether it's Tua, whether it's Joe Burrow, I even like Jacob Eason. If you get later, also, I like his arm strength. I like his arm strength, but I'm staying away from guys like Cam Newton and guys like that. I just think, although I do like Ethan, like what you said, I do feel like if you put him in the right position where he doesn't have to do everything for the team, he could be successul. Sure. So out of those,
they expected him to do. Jazz, they expected him to do everything in Carolina for years. I mean, now they have McCaffrey, but
all I can say is when Cam Newton did not have to do everything, he was in the Super Bowl.
Right. That's true. All right, follow these guys. Okay, give us the Twitter handles again. We got @JazzSantana, and then we got King Jock 24. Jakari Givens, Jazz Santana. We'll do some basketball tomorrow, but thanks for joining us for the football tonight.
All right, see you guys.
DutchVF.com. DutchVF.com.
DutchVF.com.
All right, you guys.
Thanks.